Welcome to the Dreams of Consciousness podcast. If you'd be so kind, would you mind introducing yourself?
Yeah, my name is Luke Cazares. I play guitar and do vocals in Laceration.
And Luke, how would you describe the music of Laceration?
In my opinion, I feel like we play literally just straightforward death metal.
And when you say straightforward death metal, do you feel like you're skewed to any particular era of the genre or any particular region that influences your style?
Yeah, I mean, and it's all unintentional as far as like how we write, but a lot of our influences definitely do shine, and it's just a totally organic output from, like again, our influences into the actual music. But I think realistically, uh, early to mid 90s influence death metal probably speaks the best towards like our style. Um, a lot of East Coast, Floridian, New York influences primarily. So, um, yeah, I'd say those two are very specific regions to our sound and main influences, but not obviously pigeonholed to.
Right. It does sound like, uh, especially on this latest album, the Morse sound era is a big influence on your writing style.
Oh yeah, I mean you can't go wrong. I mean classic era. So many killer bands, so many killer records have come out of Florida and recorded at Sound, whether or not they're from the United States or not.
Yeah. Can you tell me a little bit about the history of Laceration? What led to you guys forming? Why did you decide to put this together?
So yeah, rewinding damn near 20 years almost. Growing up, kind of a small town. Myself and my friend group, we were just all more or less kind of getting into um metal as kind of like a unit, and some really good friends of mine already had kind of like they kind of had like something going on as far as uh, what they were, putting together as their first band. And yeah, we all kind of just started literally like digging into, all of the different extreme corners of metal from like an early high school age. And, it was that typical moment of like, well, shit, I want to play in a band. Start playing guitar, and you just want to be able to bleed your influences into the you want to do exactly what you're listening to. And
Right. Yeah.
I think like I'm sorry.
I said, yeah, yeah, absolutely.
Oh yeah, so uh as time went on, I got hooked up with somebody, again, small town. This is early 2000s, so everybody hated metal, or at least everybody in high school at that time, as far as what they considered was
I
as what
remember.
they, yeah, what they considered as metal, was just not what we were talking about. Corn and Slipknot and all those extremely popular bands at the time, and we were just like, yeah, but you ever heard of these bands? And so it was
Right.
very clear that the lines were divided, and we were never going to find any musician that was remotely influenced by the same stuff that we were. So anyhow, I ended up getting referred to by one of my best friends. He told me that there's this drummer. I think he was like a year or two older than us, and there was also this bass player around high school that didn't really talk to anybody, but he had like Iron Maiden patches and Slayer. He would always wear Slayer shirts and shit. It was just like we saw that guy play bass at the talent show, and he played Anesthesia, and he was just like obvious. He was just like a Cliff Burton incarnate. And anyhow, me, that drummer, and Corey, our bass player that I started the Laceration with, we ended up getting together and jamming, and it was like kind of just like full steam ahead. Late 2006.
So, that earliest incarnation of Laceration. Uh, so first of all, when you say you're based in a small town, were you always based in California?
Yeah, yeah. Always
Okay.
been in California. Always been in the Northern Bay Area.
Okay. Uh, so the earliest version of Laceration that you put together in 2006, were you
Yeah.
guys already playing this kind of classic
No,
style of death metal?
no, 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 no. So, I mean, early on, we were just trying to figure out what we can play, let alone uh, where we were going, and just trying to write music together. Because again, it really does take everybody being on the same page, with the same goal in mind. And at that time, it was such a simplistic. Uh, it was like a simple execution of like, all right, well, this is sick. Let's play this. And then, oh, we got a show off or let's go play. It wasn't some sort of moment of, well, let's sit in the shadows and make sure we know what we're doing. Like it was all just so natural as far as the progression from like the early incarnation to, where we ended up going, on that first demo to the second EP. Um, so yeah, it definitely we've come a long way, but it's all just been a total natural progression. And all these bands that we still are influenced today by, or are influenced today, um, we were influenced back then. So it's just a matter of chops and musical technicality and actual uh, ability to put it into a song technically.
So a lot of people have a similar experience as you in terms of, being a high school metalhead and, getting together with friends and jamming and forming a band and maybe playing a few shows. But as you mentioned, you've been
Yeah,
doing this for almost 20 years. And, from that first demo, you've, released a number of splits, a number of EPs, and you just released your second album.
yeah.
Why was this important to you? Why was Laceration something that you stuck with?
Well, I mean, I've always held true to this because started this thing with the same goals they exist now that they did when the first couple of demos and such. It's fun to play music. We love playing music, we love writing sick music, and if people like it, it's just a major plus. And if we have the opportunities to play with bands that we love and musicians that we respect at a high regard, why would we not do this? So yeah, it's more rewarding than it's ever been, in the last 6 7 years. So if it's not fun, you should just quit entirely.
Yeah.
I fully agree with that one right there.
I mean, it sounds
But
like something that's intrinsic to you. You sound like a lifer. You sound like, you
oh,
know,
100%.
yeah. It, without Laceration, you'd probably be doing something else, also death metal. Would that be fair to say?
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah. So, on those early demos and those early EPs,
Yeah.
were you coming up with most of the music?
Yeah, so primarily back then, myself and our bass player at the time, like we wrote 90%. Well, me and him wrote everything essentially. I can't think of, yeah, there wasn't really much input until um, our second lead guitar player entered the band on the 2009 Consuming Reality EP. And once he came in, we were really good friends before he joined the band, and me and him played in another band before he joined Laceration. Um, and I mean, his nickname was like, we would just joke with him and shit. And he was the guy that literally torrented like every single sick, obscure demo. People know of like Ken's Death Metal Crypt now, and it's like that's their avenue for like obscure demos. But we were doing that stuff thanks to like our old guitar player, um, back in like the early 2000s when this stuff was extremely hard to find. And luckily, if you could find somebody that uploaded it, sure as shit, Joey found it. So when he entered the band, like we called him Officer Obituary and like Doctor Death Metal, like those were always just like funky nicknames, like high school kid nicknames. But it was absolutely valid because I mean, the amount of demos that we heard, and because of him, like, uh, I mean, shit, you still can't find those demos like physical copies, shit that's like thousands of dollars on Discogs. But when Joey entered the band, like he came with some sick riffs, and that stuff can be heard on the 2010 Realms of the Unconscious EP. But we all three wrote together. I mean, it's never Laceration still exists or still operates the same way where if members have an idea, it's all voted upon or like, oh, that's sick. Like it's not like a vote, put it in a hat and draw a piece of paper or something, but it's like, oh, does that work? Or oh, does that fit kind of where this song seems to be going? And yeah, but back then, like it just happened to work out like that. Corey and I were just, shitting out riffs and material kind of quick. And then next thing you know, we'd go and record. And Joey too, like was a key influence as far as riffs and stuff back then.
So are you guys writing in the rehearsal space together? Or are you guys demoing
Yeah,
stuff
we've
on your
always
own? Okay. Sorry,
no,
go
yeah,
ahead.
yeah. So we've always written like that. So for instance, to this day, Donnie and myself, or if Aaron has a riff or something like that, like we get together and we jam on it, whether it's like in the backyard or at somebody's house or something, and we'll send each other videos of us playing it. But we've never Laceration has never tabbed anything out. We've never done any sort of like MIDI or uh, you know, programmed demos. We've always written in person, and that's it's been like that since the beginning. It seems to work.
Yeah. Is it just the level of comfort, or is there something about
Probably.
okay.
Yeah.
Is there something about the, demoing stuff with the drum machine that you don't like or wouldn't want to do?
Well, I think it also comes from a place of laziness too, and that might sound silly because it does take effort to go grab a drum track, because there's a bunch of like there's a bunch of like drum machine tracks on YouTube. And like, as the years progress, more people upload their own versions of like a Morbid Angel beat or something like that, and or a 250 BPM blast beat that goes to a D beat or something like that. So technically, I'll pull up stuff off of YouTube and it's just a generic drum track because I think I have a riff in mind. And it doesn't necessarily mean that it's got to be that specific drum set or drum tempo or drum style, but it's enough to just kind of get the point across. And so, I'll just record it on my phone on a voice recorder, send it to the group chat or send it to Donnie and be like, hey, I think this riff works right here for this song we've been working on. And if that specific beat works well, then we may keep it. But 9 times out of 10, it's just kind of like an idea. And then when we get together with Aaron, he'll do his own input as far as the drum, as far as how he wants that drum section to be. So kind of just lays like a foundation down to get the point across. But so technically we are demoing riffs out with a drum machine, but we're just
I
not
got you.
programming.
I
Yeah,
got you.
sorry,
Yeah.
long, but
You mentioned in the old days with Corey, you guys came up with material quite quickly. Uh, are you still coming up with riffs and arranging songs fairly quickly these days?
yeah, I think so. If I had the guys with me right now, I think we were we wrote the new record um like really seamlessly. We started writing. Granted, we had a track that was already written before 2023, or we wrote that in 2020, shortly after Demise. And in 2023, we played, a plethora of shows, a small tour. And in that entire time, whether or not we had a show and we had to rehearse the set, we were still writing material. So we wrote that record over the course of a year, give or take, not 100% full focused every day writing this thing, but took our time to continue to play live, get ourselves out there, and also write the next record. And yeah, I mean, songs seem to just write themselves. I think this was like this most simplistic and organic writing um endeavor I've ever experienced. So yeah, I mean, we're extremely satisfied with how it all came out and how it was all executed. So yeah, it didn't seem like, oh man, we got to finish this song, it's taking forever. There was none of that. So I think it was fairly quick.
Let's talk about the album. It's called I
Yeah.
Erode, and it was
Yeah.
released at the end of July through 20 Buck Spin. You
Yep.
mentioned this album came together fairly quickly for you guys. Did you go into it wanting to do anything different from Demise, or to build on anything that you guys have done in the past?
Well, actually, we were gonna record some old songs, some stuff from like the early demos. We were gonna re-record it and put it on this album, but we decided not to. We decided to just go all brand new tracks, and I'm glad we did. Um, but yeah, as far as Demise is concerned, we wanted to produce a better sounding record and a more well balanced album as a whole from a composition standpoint. You know, just kind of more. And again, it's not like we didn't really try. We're not ever trying to write songs that are catchy or songs like that. But those things were always in the back of the mind. Um, because again, we kind of write music how we like to listen to music, so it just comes out naturally. But yeah, we wanted a punishing record. We wanted the drums to stand out. This is the first record with Aaron Johnson on drums, and he's one of the absolute greats. So we wanted to make sure that his every hit, everything that he's doing is very in your face. We wanted the bass to cut through. We wanted the guitars to be nice and chuggy. We wanted the vocals to be what they should be, and the leads to cut through. And I think, I'm not going to speak for everybody, but I mean, we talk about this stuff often, so I could technically say this, but we're all really satisfied with how it all came out. And as far as a follow up to Demise, we wanted to crush Demise. Not saying that I don't like the album, but what's the point of writing another album if it's not gonna top in some ways your last release?
Uh,
So,
A- yeah. Uh, Aaron's also in the band Vile Rights.
and some people might disagree with that. Some people hate the record. Yeah,
Sorry,
I'm sorry.
please,
Sorry about
please,
that.
please finish your thought.
Oh,
There's
I was just gonna
for
say,
everyone listening at home, Zoom always gives us these very odd lags, and so sometimes we end up talking over each other. But Luke, please go ahead. Please say, please finish your thought.
I was just gonna say some people might disagree with that, and that's fine too.
You mentioned Aaron joined the band recently. Aaron's also in the band Vile Rights.
Yeah.
How did you know Aaron, and how did he become part of Laceration?
So before Vile Rights, me and him we're in another band where I just do vocals in. And so is Eli. So Eli plays bass in our other band, Intrinsic Maleficence. Um, and actually, it's funny because it all kind of came full circle. Um, Me, Aaron, and Corey all jammed uh, in 2017 before our old drummer Michael Simon joined the band. So we had actually jammed together before we did Intrinsic and before kind of all the other projects kind of came. Um, but yeah, we had known each other, and we still play in that other band as well.
Okay. So because you had worked with Aaron, it was a pretty natural
Oh
uh,
yeah,
transition.
yeah, and it just worked out perfectly because um he's a great guy. We're friends, and you got that chemistry, and like he's the type of dude that plays guitar also. I mean, he's a killer guitar player, as just a well-rounded musician in general. So anybody like that you're gonna any musician should work well with a musician like that, essentially. And he's great. So to have him, his influence and his technicality in the fold has just been, I mean, it's been great.
Well, would you say the change in drummer impacted the sound at all? The sound of
Yeah.
Laceration, meaning?
Oh yeah, totally. I mean, you could listen to Demise and then listen to IE Road and probably make that assumption, or you could probably put those pieces together.
Well, how, I mean, you talked about wanting to outdo Demise, in terms of the way, the way the drums, and Aaron's contributions affected the sound. How would you say, specifically, the drums have changed the way Laceration sound?
I mean, more dynamic, technically. I'm not gonna say that our previous drummer was a bad drummer by no means. He was excellent, but just different. What Aaron's background is just different. His influences are different, so you're gonna have different execution of percussion. So, because every drummer plays different style. Every drummer has a different attack, and when it comes to the differences, both stand out in their own. Punishing ways, but as far as kind of what we're doing or where we want it to go with this next record, I feel like it's just a I'd say just a more dynamic approach.
Was that something that you were looking to do with this album to make it more dynamic, or
Oh,
did
I
it
mean,
just
it's
kind of naturally happen that way?
it naturally happened, and I'd say that it's just a plus, you know?
Okay.
Yeah.
So you recorded the album with someone who's been on this podcast before. Uh, can you tell me about working with Matt Harvey?
Yeah. So Matt's great. I mean, he's got the resume to prove what he knows and what he's done. And when that kind of came up, it was kind of it was a no-brainer really of like, well, yeah, absolutely. Let's do this. And yeah, working with him was just fantastic. I mean, kind of just let us do our thing and added his professional inputs as far as like, you should try maybe try doing this here or doing this here. Um, and having that, because again, it's like not to compare it to like professional sports or something, but like players are gonna respect a coach that played the game rather than just some dude up in the fucking window or up in the bleachers that's just looking down at the clipboard. You know what I mean? So,
Okay.
we got nothing but mad respect for Matt. And yeah, I mean, like I said though, he just kind of had like some minimal direction as far as like, you guys could probably do this, probably add this, or do this in a little different way, or layer that, or put a harmony here, and like that type of input that we're not necessarily like going in thinking of was great. Those finesse touches were definitely well received. And he's a great guy. He's funny as hell. He's a killer musician, and I mean, what more can you want?
Yeah. They're guys who love metal, and then there's Matt Harvey, right? Like he's like to the very core, like that dude is metal. Like I can't think of a single person I know who like, you know, loves being in bands, loves playing music, loves, being at shows and talking to people more than Matt Harvey. Does Matt have his
Oh
own
hell yeah.
does Matt have his own studio?
Yeah, so that's where we tracked the album. We tracked in San Luis Obispo. Yeah, it's where the last Exhumed record was done there. The last Cartilage album, DePigus, um, and I think they kind of do like with when it comes to like Gruesome too. I believe they do like a lot of the pre-production stuff there.
Okay.
It's kind of
This
like
is
the Exhumed. Yeah, it's like the Exhumed HQ.
this is Dark Corners?
Correct.
Yeah. Okay. I mean, besides Matt's experience and his enthusiasm and just being Matt Harvey basically, what were you
Yeah.
looking for Matt to bring to the sound as an engineer?
Kind of, I mean, well, allowing us to do what we already kind of had intended going in, which I didn't think that we didn't think that there was going to be any sort of like headbutting or anything, and there wasn't. But we wanted an album that sounded sick. I mean, I know that's such a vague thing to say, but we wanted an album to more or less cut through kind of like how I explained it. Um, and you know, I think it worked.
Yeah. I mean, with the era of music that you're influenced by, uh, were you looking at anything that Matt did with Gruesome or any of his other projects? Were you looking to capture some of
No,
that?
no, not
Okay.
necessarily.
Okay. Uh, so basically just Matt's general experience with the genre, not necessarily any specific project that he's worked on.
Yeah. Yeah, we didn't say like, "Hey, this record is really good. Why don't you make it sound like that?" None of that.
Okay. Uh, who mixed and mastered the album?
Greg Wilkinson from Earhammer Studios in Oakland.
Tell me about working with Greg. Why Greg?
It was fantastic. Fantastic. I mean, when he had the final recordings in his hands, we more or less gave him just some basic, not basic, but we laid out the criteria that we were looking for as far as kind of what we left Dark Corners with, and intent for the final mix, so to say. And I mean, he just knocked it out. Like we explained exactly kind of what we're looking for, and when we got the first mixed tracks, it was like there was very minimal back and forth of can you do this, can you do that, can you turn this up, can you turn this down. I mean, Greg's the man. Another individual that his catalog and his resume speak for himself as far as what he does and how he does it.
Yeah, it's a rare week that I don't speak about Greg. That Greg's name doesn't come up on his podcast.
Oh,
He's
rightfully so.
yeah, he's worked with most of the bands in the American extreme metal scene in one capacity or another. Um, and he's a member of
Yeah,
Autopsy. So um
hell yeah.
can't go wrong with Greg. Um, and this is your
Yeah.
first time working with both Greg and Matt, right?
Yes.
Uh, I mean, Greg has a proven track record as an engineer and as a mixer and master. Uh, Matt, I don't know if he's as well known as an engineer. Uh, did you have any hesitation at all?
Kinda, to be honest, because again, the specific releases that he had done, um, definitely were enough to be like, okay, I think if we go in there with our ideas, there's no doubt in my mind that we're not going to be able to leave or have produced something otherwise or something that we were unhappy with. Um, and again, like maybe other bands do it differently, but like when we're there, we were like very specific of, the tone of the guitars, the bass tone, how everything is structured, and we definitely speak our mind of okay, can it try like this isn't really sounding good, can what can we do differently here, because this is what we want the album to sound like, is it gonna when we leave, is it going to be something different? Or because again, what we left with, the unmixed tracks are pretty close to what, the finals are. So we left with more or less a good slab of the foundation to build off for what Greg was able to build off of. And that was really important of, okay, what we're doing here, it's not going to necessarily be like a completely different iteration. So, but yeah, I mean, anytime recording, it's like, well, hope this goes well,
Yeah.
I don't know any music. If you're a musician and you just go into every recording thinking that it's just going to be great, you're dumb.
Yeah, yeah. There are uh lot of variables when you're recording an album.
Yeah.
And I just spoke to an engineer, someone who has his own studio, and his take was, basically death metal is impossible to produce. It's impossible to record well. Like it's always a challenge. But the
Yeah.
I Road sounds great. It sounds very punchy. It sounds like razor sharp. I think Matt Matt did a really
Thank you.
good job, and of course, you can't fault Greg for anything. So
Right.
yeah. Um, so as we're having this conversation, you recently finished a West Coast tour. Do you have anything
Yeah.
planned for the rest of the year, or maybe the beginning of 2025?
Yeah. Yeah. So, in just under or a little bit over a month, we're going to be playing with Ghoul in Petaluma. So, they're kicking off a West Coast tour, and I believe that's either the first date or the second date. But yeah, that's going to be sick because that's not necessarily a hometown show, but I mean, it's pretty close. So that's going to be a fun one. That's going to be at the Phoenix Theater on October 18th.
Very cool. Uh, for anyone who has not seen Ghoul before, bring a raincoat. That's all I'm gonna say.
Yeah. Yeah. If you're close, better not worry about what you're wearing.
So iRoad is out now through 20 bucks spin. Luke, please tell everyone how they can order the album. What's the best way to get it?
You can get the album from 20 bucks spin. As far as LPs go, as far as vinyl, whatever's left, I'm not necessarily sure what they have on hand, but you can pick it up through them. Uh, we just got back from the West Coast tour for the album, and we'll be posting tour leftovers. So most of the stuff on Bandcamp is sold out. However, we do have some quantities of some sold out vinyl variants, as well as some tour shirts that we will be posting on Friday. So you can go to Laceration Bay Area .bandcamp or bandcamp.com, and you could support us directly. And yeah, as far as our personal merchandise, come to a show, and if you can't, go to Bandcamp, Laceration Bay Area Bandcamp.
So Luke, it's rare that a band actually has the vinyl on hand when I speak to them. Would you mind showing people that variant again? Is that the yellow
Oh
one?
hell yeah! Yeah, this is the this is the Galaxy. This is the canary yellow, black Galaxy. I think these ones are the sickest, personally. Um, but let's see here. Got the album cover here. If you can see that, there's this baby. And yeah, so this is the Black Galaxy. Um, and yeah, I mean, the vinyls came out really sick. We've still got some of the other variant too that will go up on Bandcamp this Friday. Lyric action. But yeah, Mr. James Bosema
Very cool.
crushed it with this cover.
And you mentioned uh tour merch. Is all the merch going through Bandcamp?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, so all of the remaining tour merch, tour t-shirts, whatever we have left, it's very far and few in between. But what we do have left will be going up on Bandcamp.
Cool. And if people want to follow Laceration online and get updates on tours and things like that, what's the best way to
Yeah.
do that?
Laceration Official on Instagram, and as far as Facebook, Laceration US.
Do you want to say anything about any of your other projects?
Yeah, sure. Eli and Aaron and myself, our other project, Intrinsic Maleficence, will probably be releasing something either probably next year. So be on the lookout. Hit us up on Instagram.
Cool. And does Intrinsic Maleficence also have a Bandcamp page?
I think so. I don't know it off the top of my head, unfortunately. I think it's just intrinsicmaleficence.bandcamp.com.
Okay, cool. Is there anything else you want to say?
Stay heavy. Keep supporting underground music. Go to
Very,
shows. Buy merch. Don't buy shit off of Amazon.
very cool. Thank you, Luke.
Hell yeah. Thank you.